So in our look at fielding analytics so far, we've shown how range factor is a pretty good measure of fielding performance. And we looked at it by exploring the careers of Derek Jeter and Ozzie Smith. But now let's look at some of the problems with range factor as a measure of fielding skill, especially measuring range. So let's define what the concept of range is, the skill that range is trying to measure. The skill is covering more ground and getting to more balls in the field. That's what we want to try to measure with range factor. And in the beginning of this module, we made the case that due to falling error rates, fielding percentage is not as important as measurements of range. The game has changed from one of sure-handedness to one of getting to more balls on defense. So in our exploration of range factor, we looked at the original idea of taking box score measurements, putouts and assists, and dividing by the number of games played. And we understand that range factor in this simple formula is better than fielding percentage. Technology has changed the game, factors have changed the game, so that sure-handedness is less crucial, and range factor, measures of range, are more important. But because not all games played, the denominator for the original range factor formula, because they're not the same, this original range factor formula was not as good as dividing by the number of innings played. Different fielders will have different opportunities to field different balls. One, its position, but there are other factors involved as well. So what else impacts our ability to measure range well? What criticisms can we make of range factor? Well, first, there's strikeout rates by the pitching staff. If a fielder is behind a pitching staff which throws a lot of strikeouts, that means less putouts and assists for the non-catchers, which means you'll have less batted ball opportunities, which means your range factor by those original formulas will be less than fielders who are behind a pitching staff that does not strike out a lot of players. So the pitcher strikeout rates impacts the ability of the fielders to make putouts. Also, the ground ball, fly ball tendencies of the pitcher, which depends on the mix of pitch types that the pitcher throws, can impact batted ball opportunities as well. More ground balls from a pitcher and a pitching staff mean less putout and assist opportunities for the outfielders, but more for the infielders. So the ground ball, fly ball tendencies also impact batted ball opportunities. Both the batter-handedness and the pitcher-handedness impact batted ball opportunities for the different sides of the field. If you have more left-handed batters that you're facing as a defender, it likely means less putouts and assists for the left side of the infield, the shortstop, the third baseman, and the left fielder. This is due to the tendency of batters to pull balls towards one side of the field or the other based on their being right-handed batters or left-handed batters. On the defensive side, the handedness of the pitcher has the same impact on batted ball opportunities for different sides of the field. Batted ball opportunities also are impacted by some park effects. One obvious one is turf fields versus grass infields. Park effects could have some effect on batted ball opportunities. Also, not all putouts and assists are equal. Some putouts are measures of range and some putouts are not measures of range. And some assists are measures of range and some assists are not measures of range. So an evaluation of the different positions and the different plays are important if we want to Measure range factor well. Improve on the original range factor formulas. So, taking a throw at first base by the first baseman is not necessarily a great measure of the first baseman's range. The double play pivot by either the shortstop or the second baseman is not necessarily a measure of that player's range. It's their ability to get to second base to receive the throw. Then there's the tag play at any base or home. The fielder receiving the throw to make the tag gets a putout, but that putout isn't necessarily a measure of that fielder's range. Many pop-ups and fly balls can be caught by many different fielders, so it's not always a measure of the range of the person who caught that pop-up or fly ball. So these individual plays are not equally impactful of our ability to measure the range of the fielder. But if we really want to measure the ability to get to the ball, the ability to cover ground, these plays here and others may not be the best way to measure it. So maybe in your measures of range, you might try to adjust for the different kinds of plays that are out there. Finally, the defensive skill of the whole team impacts individual players on that team to get to different batted balls. So if you played on a really good defensive team where fielders all over the field had really good range and were able to get to many balls, that might mean less putouts and assists for the other players. And this might impact our Ozzie Smith, Derek Jeter question. We tried to make the case that Ozzie Smith had much better range by simple range factor measures than Derek Jeter. But what if it was just because Derek Jeter always played with great third basemen who got many, many balls that might have been for normal shortstops? We don't think that's the case, but if it was, that might be the cause of Derek Jeter's lower range factor. It might impact the variability of his range factor for different years as well. The players around you, the defensive skill of the team you play on, impacts your ability to accumulate putouts and assists. So, original range factor formulas had problems. We can improve on the original range factor formulas.